If you're watching this video, it's because probably you need to get a surety bond. And taking it a step further, if you need to get a surety bond, it's probably not because you came up with the idea of wanting to go out and buy a surety bond. It's probably because some third party told you you have to get one. Most clients or businesses or individuals are forced to get a surety bond. It's not because you're doing it on your own free will. It may be that you're applying for a certain type of a professional license that requires that you have a bond. It may be because you're wanting to enter into a contract with a government agency that requires that you have a bond. It may be a building contract with a third party that requires that your bid and your performance be bonded. You've heard of the phrase licensed, bonded, and insured. Well, those are three different things, and the bond is an important part of it. So before you go and shop around for a surety bond and look to buy a surety bond, let's first talk about what a bond is and give you some background on what you're getting yourself into. Because at some point you're going to buy a surety bond, and it may be very inexpensive, a couple $100 in most cases for most surety bonds. But before you go and just buy one, why not understand what you're getting yourself into, what it entails, and maybe use the process of getting a surety bond as a means to get more benefit for you and your company than just what's required for that particular request of a third party. There may be other things you can benefit by getting this bond than just getting this contract or getting this license. Also, we'll talk about pricing of bonds, how to shop around, and what competition exists or doesn't exist. So the first thing to do is understand what is a surety bond. Well, a surety bond is a contract, just like any other contract, between three parties. Most contracts that you see are between two parties, buyer and a seller, client and agency, whatever two parties are. Surety bond is a three-party contract. If you're looking to purchase a surety bond, your named identity on that bond will be called a principal. You are the principal of that bond. That's what you're going to be called on that document, on that contract. The principal is the business or person who is required to get the bond to guarantee something for a third party. Guarantee that you complete your building contract correctly. Guarantee that you perform properly under a license issued to you. Guarantee that you're making representations maybe for a vehicle title or something. You are the principal. The other party to the bond that's receiving the benefits is called the obligee. The obligee is the licensing board, let's say, for attorneys that is benefited from the bond if the attorney messes up. It's maybe the party that's hiring you as a builder that wants to make sure if you disappear one day that they're not going to be stuck with a half-finished project. They're the party requiring you to purchase a bond. Whoever told you you have to get a bond, that's probably the obligee. Could be a government agency, could be party to a contract, could be a licensing board. They're requiring a guarantee that whatever you're saying you're going to do in your contract with them is going to be done. And they're saying, yeah, we take your word for it, but we want a little bit more backup. So you have to perform to a certain terms of a contract or a license. Who's the third party? The third party is the surety. That is the company that issues the bond and guarantees that what you're saying is good enough than just your word. So the surety is kind of like an insurance company. A lot of times it is an insurance company. Travelers insurance is a major issue of bonds, CNA. Most companies that issue bonds are basically insurance companies. What they're doing is saying, look, whatever this person, the principal, is saying to you, the obligee, and promising in the contract, they're going to build this building by a certain day. They're going to use proper materials. They're going to be a honorable licensee. Whatever you're promising, They're saying, if they mess up, we'll step in and we're the deep pockets. We'll fix the problem financially. We're going to step in and guarantee up to a certain amount of the bond. The bond could be for $1 million, it could be for $20,000, it could be for whatever amount the bond is required to be. And that gives the obligee, the party that's demanding that you have a bond, give them some comfort and peace of mind that they can believe what you're saying and representing to them. So if you say, as a builder, I'm going to build this building by a certain date using this materials and everything's going to be good, it'll be good quality workmanship. If you fail to provide that contracted promise, the surety will step in and fix the problem financially for that other party. That way, you can get more contracts than you would otherwise, because look, who's going to take your word for something if they don't know who you are, know how much money you have, or know how good you are at your job? They may do a background check, but anything can happen. The surety backs that up. So those are the three parties. We'll also talk a little bit about pricing and how to do some comparison shopping, or even if that's worth doing. Is there any competition for bonds? Most of the time, you're going to buy a bond. It'll cost you a few $100s. But you want to know what you're getting yourself into with that bond before you just sign a contract for a bond. So what are you getting yourself into? Well, let's first take a look at what a bond looks like. Here are three examples. Here is a vehicle industry business license bond. This is if you are in the state of Nevada and you want to be in the car business. You want to be a repairer or a dealership or a body shop. You have to get a bond so that if you mess up and cause harm to a consumer by not delivering a car the right way, or forging a title, or not fixing a car the right way, or taking money that doesn't belong to you, that consumer has a redress. They can get compensated for their loss. And if you, as a dealership, have gone out of business, there's no place for them to get their money. This business license bond will kick in and fix all the problems for the consumers. It's going to be required by Occupational and Licensing Bureau. So they will be the obligee, you will be the principal, and the bond agency will be the surety. And it's just a contract. You look at it, it's just a regular contract. Here's another one. Here's for a company that wants to do business in Pennsylvania as a health club. Well, health clubs have to get a bond because they are notorious in that industry for taking a bunch of membership fees and then closing down, and people can't get their refunds. This bond will help people get the refund. Loss or damage as a result of breach of contract or bankruptcy. Look at the difference. It's just a contract. It's nothing special, no special form. Last one we'll look at is a surety bond for community care licensing. This is for a company that wants to get into adult residential, basically retirement homes or foster homes. Need a surety bond. If you notice, they're all just kind of contractual forms, different for each state, different for each use. And the bonding company, the surety, will just fill this in, sign it, stamp it, put their license number, have it notarized, and they're good to go. What are you getting yourself into when you purchase a surety bond? Well, if you are a building company and you get a bond, you start a project, and for whatever reason you can't complete it. Maybe you have financial problems. Maybe you get sick. Maybe you go out of business. The surety will step in and fix the problem for your obligee. They'll hire another builder to finish your project. They'll pay the obligee cash amount just to walk away from the contract. But unlike an insurance claim, that's not where the activity stops. Look, if you crash into somebody with your car and you cause them damage, your insurance company will pay the claim to the other car, and then that's the end of the story. With a surety, after the insurance company pays the claim, so to speak, to your obligee, now they're going to go back and tell you that you owe them the money. This is not a waiver of coverage. In most cases, even though the surety company paid off the other party, that doesn't mean you're off the hook. You have to pay them back in most cases. Again, we're not attorneys. We're not giving you legal advice, but most surety bonds require recompensation, restitution from you to the surety for whatever they paid. So you're not off the hook. And the reason that they're there, and you might think, well, why bother doing that if I'm going to pay the money anyways? Why do I need the bond? Well, the bond is there to make sure that your obligee, the person who is asking for this, knows somebody's got deep pockets. Because if you went bankrupt or you disappeared, you might not have the money to pay. This ensures that the money is there to pay. Because somebody with deep pockets has the money, not just you. If you're a licensing application client and you need a bond, it's because if you go out of business, that bond will be used to make whole and pay back clients who have lost money because of your business messing up, taking deposits and not paying back, selling a car, not delivering, that kind of thing. But the surety will have a debt against you to recover from that. Whether they do or not, that's up to them. Sometimes they're able to recover. Sometimes they have to sue you in court. A lot of other factors. But technically, in most cases, check your contract, you're going to owe them the money. So you're not off the hook. And the way it works is that surety bond is like posting bail. It's like posting a deposit. As an example of that, in many cases, instead of a surety bond, you as a required party, as a principal, have the option of just putting up the money. Look, when it comes to getting a business license, if the licensing board requires a $10,000 surety bond, if you read the statutes for the state, it says, or you can just put up $10,000 in a frozen account and just leave it there instead of getting a surety bond. As long as they know there's $10,000 sitting somewhere, whether the surety bond guarantees it or you put it in a bank account that you can't touch, they're fine. But it's usually better for an applicant or for a contract client to buy a bond and just put tens of thousands or millions of dollars of money frozen. So that gets to the next question. How much does a bond cost? Well, a typical surety bond costs a few $100s. A typical $20 or $30 or $40,000 bond might cost $200 or $300, depending on the risk. One thing you will find is the price of the bond is typically going to be the same no matter where you buy it. One company is probably not going to be cheaper than another. In fact, in most states, bond fees are posted regulated amounts with the government. Companies can't charge more or less than anybody else. You have to post your fees and they have to be the same as everybody else for the most part. You may find slight variations from one to another. So how do you pick who to buy a bond from? Well, what you probably want to do is look at a company that is exclusively or focused on the bond industry. There's a lot of insurance companies or agencies that sell business insurance that do bonds once in a while for their clients, but they don't primarily practice that area. And the reason why that might not be good is because it may take you longer to get the bond, or they may get it from a company that's you have to fill out a lot of paperwork. Some bond applications are very simple, some are difficult. So talk to a few bond agencies to ask them what their practice area is. Do they do mostly bonds or exclusively bonds? If the word bond is in their company name, that probably means that they do bonds. If it's just XYZ Insurance, they probably do insurance and maybe bonds on the side. So the price is probably going to be the same no matter where you get it. You want to have a relationship with a company that makes your bonding process convenient and efficient because they do it all the time. It's a streamlined operation for them. Make sure you ask a lot of questions about the bonding process. What do you need to show Do you need to show experience? Do you need to show a resume? Maybe a CV? Maybe you need to show bank statements. Maybe you need to have other credentials to go along with it. Some companies have stronger underwriting than others. And then ask the question, well, what happens if the bond is defaulted on? Just to verify, don't take our word for it, that what they're saying is true. That, yeah, they're going to come back after you for the bond. And then make sure the bond terms match what your obligee is asking for. Make sure the amount is correct, but also that the wording on the bond is correct. We've seen many times where a bond has been purchased and it has wording on it that doesn't match exactly what the obligee is looking for. So let the obligee present their document here. This is a perfect example. The DMV bond from Nevada tells you what wording it is. If you just have the surety company issue their own boilerplate standard form, it might not have the right wording on it that the obligee requires. So that's some basic information on surety bonds. Make sure that you get a bond that matches exactly what's being asked for, and look to see if it can maybe cover other contracts. If you get a blanket bond that maybe covers all contracts up to X amount of dollars, you might be able to use your surety bond for other obligees. Ask your agent if you can get a blanket bond to cover all your business for the next 90 days or multiple licenses. That way, if you do another deal, you don't have to spend another $200 or $300 for a bond. You might be able to get a blanket bond that covers all your business for future obligees as well, and just add them as a named obligee at a later date. Maybe possible, may not be, but ask your agent if you can get a bond one time that covers all your needs going forward, so you don't have to keep paying another $200 or $300 every time you need a bond.